Hello, good evening. Welcome to Plain Talk. My guest this evening is Dr. Kirk Meighoo, a man who needs very little or no introduction at all. So, Kirk, get right to it.
How are you doing, Philip? And good to see everybody and yourself.
Somebody say if it's you and Kirk one on one, because we've never done a one on one. They say if it's you and
That's
Kirk
right.
one on one, it's fire. Tell me, it's fire?
Well, we'll see what we want to talk about. I can be very diplomatic if I need to.
Listen, I having a real problem, Kirk, with this argument about the Speaker of the House. And I thought I make my point and then tell me, your side, right? But every government come and government go, know that if Manchester United was playing Chelsea and 11 Man U players run on the field and 11 Chelsea players run and 12 Chelsea players run on the field, 12th player is also the referee, they would say, but that's nonsense. You can't do that. But that's how our system is set up. That the government appoints somebody to arbitrate what's going on in the house, the speaker. A Balize draws wearing member, but when it's UNC, I mean, who more UNC than my boy in the last speaker of the house? Please, 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 everybody, please. Seriously, the system doesn't work. It doesn't make sense. It's set up badly. The opposition is complaining now about it. Why didn't the opposition do something about it when they were in government, when the same unfair setup of the parliament was in their favor?
I agree with you. I think that they should have. I mean, at the time, I wasn't a member of the party, but even if I was, I'm not.
No?
I did join, yes, yes.
All right. Continue. No,
And
no, it's fine.
yeah. Well, I mean, I've put my name in for nomination for a seat, right? So I would like to contest, but it's up to the leadership, and that's fine. I've reserved myself.
Let me hear you on the
Huh?
speaker, the host, because I want
Yeah.
to get the speaker, drill down to that.
Yeah. I mean, the wider context is constitution reform, right? So the only chance that we had to do constitution reform after was after Eric Williams, right? Was in '86 under the NAR, and they didn't do it. And then was under the PP, and they did not do it. Now, there's a big contrast when Bastille Pandey was prime minister with the UNC. They did a lot, even though they didn't even have a majority, let alone a constitutional majority. From things like Freedom of Information Act to entrenching the THA, to the Joint Select Committees, all sorts of ways to make Parliament.
Under Integrity in Public Life Act. Under whose government? Bastille Pandey.
That was no, the Integrity in Public Life Act. That was under I think that was the Integrity Commission was certainly part of the '76 Constitution, and yeah, I think they had an ombudsman after that in '76. So, but you had the Equal Opportunities Act, which was.
What gives us the Integrity Commission that happened way after the '76 upgrade? Who gave us the Integrity in Public Life Act? I believe it was Pandey, but I don't want to speak out of turn. But I am agreeing with you.
I'll have to check that. But I thought it was there from before, so we can check. I could be mistaken. Yeah, but I do think that the opposition dropped the ball last time, and instead they introduced they had a Hamid Gandhi committee. I mean, I headed the Vision 2020 committee on constitution reform in 2000. Well, when was it appointed? 2003, I think it was. Right. So, and we had all sorts of people on the committee, and we came up with a fundamental proposal on the way forward to change it. Because you see, what really happened was, okay, this is part of constitutional reform. And when Eric Williams came in, essentially that's what it is. He wanted to make sure that the government had no effective opposition. That was his idea of what an independent be like. But we had politics before the PNM came. People think it started with Eric Williams. It did not. From 1925 to 1956, we had several constitutions and constitution reform. And what we had I'll tell you what, the system Eric Williams was elected under, he hated.
Was a lot more functional.
That's right. He hated it. He lobbied for it to be changed vigorously. Because I'll tell you one of the most important things that was there. The prime minister could not just appoint a cabinet just like that. The cabinet had to be elected by the legislature, right? So if you had a majority, which the PNM actually did not, that's what people forget in 56. But if you had a majority, then okay, you effectively you put it in. But if you didn't, you would need to convince. So it's kind of like what the U.S. has with the confirmation of their cabinet secretaries and so forth. So we had that. Yeah.
Important. You see, Trinidadians don't understand that we should have a confirmation process, and that's what's missing. So you could pick the son of a drug lord and make him. I mean, I'm literally trying to be as ridiculous with my analogy as I could. There is nobody.
That's right. And not only that, there was a process by which the legislature could remove any cabinet minister with a 2/3 secret ballot. A secret ballot could have removed the cabinet minister. That was our constitution that Eric Williams was elected under, and he hated it. He hated it. His argument was that Britain didn't have anything like that. So we should not have anything like that. We had actually developed a very, very interesting constitution that was fitted to our sociology and circumstance. Our first government was not Eric Williams. It was led by Albert Gomes, right? A Portuguese. And it was a coalition government of 5 different parties and independents. And they were just coincidentally of 5 different races, right? Because our politics was always plural. Right? So you had Norman Tang, you had Ajoda Singh, you had Victor Bryan, you had Victor Bryan and Roy Joseph and Albert Gomes. So it was 5 people that made up our first government. But Williams not only wrote them out of history as a historian in his History of Trinidad and Tobago, he doesn't even mention them. His goal was to wipe out Albert Gomes from history, which he effectively has, because nobody remembers him. And they did so much for this country, so much, including the Shouter Baptist liberation, the act that liberated them, the Industrial Development Corporation, all sorts of things.
They were still criminalized.
No, they were until the Gomes administration lifted the ban.
There was the person who decriminalized the Shouter Baptist.
No, he celebrated it.
Oh, he celebrated it.
He made it into a holiday, right? But it was Gomes who actually lifted it, and and again, that was part of the whole thing of recognizing the diversity of Trinidad and Tobago, which is really a different ideology, and let's just get straight into it. The PNM's ideology, people like to say UNC, and you yourself like to say, we could debate on it, like to say PNM and UNC are two different sides of the same coin. They are not. They come from totally different.
Stop right there. Yeah. I'll prove you wrong right now. You ready to go?
Yeah, I'm ready. Now listen.
Commission of Inquiry. Why do Trinidadians not trust commissions of inquiry? When Garcia was summoned to a commission of inquiry, he just didn't go. The fine was what, $200, $400, $2,000. It doesn't matter. A commission of inquiry has no functional teeth or authority. The judge or the panel handling the commission of inquiry, they have no real authority. And I have asked, why wasn't a commission of inquiry given the powers of contempt If you are summoned before a commission of inquiry, if you do not show up, you could be held with under contempt law until you show up. If you undermine a commission of inquiry in any way, work to undermine the function of a commission of inquiry in any way, jail for contempt. All of a sudden, that will turn itself around. The director of public prosecutions. That's the next thing. A commission of inquiry, I tell people, you don't buy a drill because you want a drill. You buy a drill because you want a hole. You don't get a commission of inquiry to get to anything else other than evidence and
That's right.
recommendations to the justice system, in our case, the prosecutorial arm of the justice system, to take further action here. If the director of public prosecutions drops the ball, the commissioner in charge of that inquiry should be able to summon the DPP and ask of him why. I am also
Yeah.
saying a commission of inquiry could recommend arrest, prosecution, and charge from within the inquiry. We have nothing like that. The opposition
Yeah.
UNC, Kirk, I am at best a bush lawyer. The UNC have more degrees than a thermometer. You trying to tell me they don't know that?
Yeah. No, what I would say is this, is that they have not done everything that I would like or you would like,
I only
right?
touching big things tonight, Kirk. I only touching big things tonight.
Yeah,
Trinidadians
yeah,
have no faith in the system and they have no
yeah.
faith in commissions of inquiry because a commission of inquiry costs us millions of dollars. It is broadcast on television. We get to say ooh, we get to say ah, and when it is done, they say this one is he recommends that this person and that person be further investigated and judged. Nothing happens. So to the average person in Trinidad and Tobago, a commission of inquiry is a circus. It is theater.
Yeah.
It is a farce.
Yeah, and it always has been. It's been a witch hunt because very often it's only directed at past administrations, takes up a long time, and then it just gathers dust. It's like so many reports. It is a totally broken system.
A witch hunt like parliamentary privilege. When parliamentary privilege was created, they had no such thing as the Parliament channel. It was behind closed doors. You couldn't broadcast what took place in the Parliament. Parliamentary privilege is a joke now. They broadcast defamation of everybody and anybody that they want to attack. You can't do anything about it. You can't pierce privilege. Now they have second-hand privilege that the media could take defamation from within the house that was offered under privilege and broadcast that and shield it from defamation laws. All of these things I want to show you. I want to show you actual. When people hear me say that nothing works in Trinidad and Tobago, the whole system broken, we actually know where it's broken. On April 27, 1984, President of the Republic, Sir, now rest in peace, Ellis Clark, appointed a commission of inquiry into the extent of the drug trade in Trinidad and Tobago, April 27, 1984. Do you know what became of that inquiry?
Yeah, well, I have a copy of it if you want one. But I know the whole thing. Yeah. I know I mean, that was one of the biggest disappointments in this country's history because it finally exposed the drug trade and people's very, very, very well-known people, names called. I have the report and I can make it available to people. They can read it. It was banned from publication in Trinidad, by the way. Published in Grenada.
Who had the power to silence Justice Scott's report and prevent it from being laid in the Parliament?
Remember, we had a system of government where for 30 years straight, there was one party.
One man.
Yeah, one man.
One man and crapos and balize ties. He said it. He said it, not a damn
that's right.
Back. He said
that's right. And when I say come,
when I say go,
when I say come, he cometh, and he said go, you goeth. Not a damn dog bark. If you don't like it, get the hell out of here. All of that. That was the culture that was built into the civil service. there's all sorts of things that I was just talking to a senior civil servant the other day.
That was the
Yeah,
cult.
and we were talking, and there are things that Williams did, like, for example, to punish some of the brightest, most intelligent civil servants we had, people like, Doddridge Lane or Eugenio Moore. He would put them in a position and a desk and a pencil and give them nothing to do. And that was a psychological torture he did to people. He would kick people upstairs. That was something Lloyd Best used to talk to me about. In other words, give people a promotion and so they could be powerless. So they get some honorary position and can't actually do anything. And there were all sorts of ways that the system, the culture of the system, which is quite apart from the law. Because one of the things in my book on constitutional reform with Peter Jamada that we did, and one of the points I make is that, sometimes you can have a bad, when you look at it on paper, it's a pretty bad system, but the political culture is so robust, it works. Other places have a pretty good system. Our system on paper is actually pretty good, but we have a rotten culture. And
who
you can put
who you comparing us to? Haiti, Rwanda? What is good about Trinidad and Tobago? Kirk, let's be real. I shared again today that I interviewed Bastio Pandey one-on-one. And I asked Bastio Pandey about the drug trade. I asked Bastio Pandey why nobody ever recommissioned a commission of inquiry into the drug trade. In 1984, it was in its infancy. Between then and now, it's built global empires. We've passed billions of dollars of cocaine and cocaine dollars through Trinidad and Tobago. We've corrupted all arms of government and state. We've made a mess and a mockery of the public service. Our banking institutions are a mess. A Progressive Empowerment Party government says, we will first amend the Commission of Inquiry Act to make sure that a Commission of Inquiry has teeth to take action, and then we will commission 2 inquiries into the drug trade in Trinidad and Tobago and into white-collar crime in Trinidad and Tobago, and it will jail people who sit in the front pew of the church right now. And you have to agree. Look, you have to agree with me. The Minister of Finance, the current Minister of Finance, call him, but if you prick his skin, he will tell you anything about anybody. He have all the answers to everything. But as the oversight of central bank, who has the oversight of every commercial bank, they can't tell you where the billions of dollars of drug money and laundered money going in the economy. But they could stunt for you and call one another dunce and fool and all kind of jam it in the parliament. But we can't get actual leadership and representation that works.
And throughout my years of being involved in various political movements and so forth, and being in contact with people, I am aware that international agencies are aware of people who are involved in the drug trade. We have reports of busts on Mollusk Island, of tins of juice with cocaine in it. Yeah, I remember on TV, on the news, when they were at Hafiz Karamat's house with all the drug paraphernalia, showing it on the 7 o'clock news, and nothing happened. And he still got contracts, right? These are facts. These are realities. And our system, our society, unfortunately, is tied up in it from top to bottom. And we have to be able to do something about it. I agree, and I think from all
I live in a country where I advertise Kirk Meighoo coming on my show tonight. All the little whisperers want to tell me things about Kirk Meighoo. Everything. They will damage, you know this? They will damage your reputation, but they're not gonna do it in public. They will create fake profiles on Facebook and come and tell one another things about you just to damage you. I want to tell you what's going on in Trinidad and Tobago right now. In Trinidad and Tobago right now, we have an ascendancy of open minds because of social media and because of people like you, Kirk Meighoo, and myself and others who have stepped out and stood up at risk. I had to tell a man today, I said, brother, you lecturing me from the convenience and the safety of your WhatsApp. What we do at risk to ourselves.
Yeah. and paid a price. I've paid a price. You've paid a price. You know, it's something that we feel passionate about, and people say things just like they tell you
No, but
things about people tell
no,
me things about you.
bro, I say that to you because I could only imagine what you told. And I have to tell
Yeah,
somebody that I went on a fellow named John Balkaransing telling one of my members, Matthew Gibbs, that there are deep pocket people in the West want to put money in PEP, but they won't put money in on because Philip is too arrogant and they need a new leader. And I asked him, I said, brother, who are these people? What have they done? I want to get an antonym for arrogant. Bashful,
hum,
cowering, cringing, demure, diffident, introverted, mousy, overmodest, self-critical, self-doubting, sheepish, shrinking, shy, subdued, timid, acquiescent, compliant, deferential, meek, passive,
yeah.
submissive, unaggressive, unassertive, unassuming, unobtrusive, yielding, quiet, reserved, and retiring. That's what you want to
Very
lead a
much.
country.
That is very much a description of our middle classes.
Boss,
You understand?
that's what you want to lead a country that should have trillions of dollars in its heritage and stabilization fund like Norway, but doesn't. That's what you want to lead a country where everybody know that everybody see drugs and money laundering occurring in this country, billions of dollars. People who say they are the most powerful in the region can't explain the wealth. How you come to have what you have, powerful, where the power come from. I ask these questions. That makes me arrogant. I'll be arrogant till the day I die. I'm not going to be unassuming and shrinking and quiet and shy because
Yeah,
Trinidad and
exactly.
Tobago has been at war with itself. So I'll get you, and I'll tell you this, and I'll tell you this now. They have good people in the PNM and they have good people in the UNC. I marched
Of
with
course,
both.
of course,
I,
me too.
I,
Yeah, we marched together, you
you
and
and I
I,
were bookend with
with
Pete
with
Rowley
Rowley.
on Section
It's on
34. You and I,
YouTube.
yeah.
You could Google it right. Everybody could go Google it right now. And I will stand by it. You know,
At that time,
and
it was the
and
right thing to do.
that's right. And in fact, Kamala did apologize for it later, and she did fire the people we asked to be fired. So what more you want?
You know
But
what I
anyways,
want? I don't think Herbert Volney should have just been fired. I think Herbert Volney should have been investigated for, at the very least, misbehavior in
yeah,
public office. But I
yeah.
know and I
No, no.
suspect that
No, but
The reason that he wasn't was that deals had to be struck to make the thing go away.
okay,
Because I know that it
yeah,
had to have gone much further than one little one-time parliamentarian, Herbert Volney. I know because it had to pass through the Legislative Commission of the Ministry of Legal Affairs and the
yeah.
Attorney General's office.
And I will say something that I said during that time, and I'm sure you would probably remember when I said it. At the round tables we were at and everything. But there are Newsday reports. I've shared it on social media many times, and I can share it again about how the extradition request happened. It was because when they were investing Calmaquip in Florida, or no, when they were investigating the Vargas drug cartel from Colombia, it led to Calmaquip in Florida. And then, so they have questions, for our boys over here.
There's not just questions. Those guys
Need,
gave Cook,
yeah,
they
they
testified.
need,
They went to
we need
jail.
to find out about that. We need for ourselves. We need to find out about that. We need to clean up the drug trade in this country. I am totally with you.
Perez and Paz and them, they went to jail. They paid their fines. The evidence that the
Yeah,
United States has on Ishwa Galbaransing and Steve Ferguson is not lightweight information. Everything that
yeah.
went on with Anna Ramlogan, the creation of Section 34, the unwillingness to extradite. Listen, and we can't just make this allegation, Steve, because this goes as far back as Johnny O and Privat
That's
and
right.
all. This is a country that has facilitated white collar criminality to hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars. The
Yes,
Caroni
and
Racing
it's
Complex, Caroni Racing
exactly,
Complex. How many
and
people talk
everything.
about that?
It goes from top to bottom, to left to right, to diagonal to diagonal. Everything in this country is a racket, is corrupt. You could give textbooks to children, and Trini will figure out a racket. They will figure out a racket for anything. There is this pervasive Trinidadian culture. That's why up and down the Caribbean, they call us Trinidadians. Tobagonians are not like that even. It's
That's why
Trinis. It's
Tobagonians,
culture.
that's why Tobagonians don't like Trinidadians.
Exactly. And we're
Tobagonians don't
dirty.
trust us. They don't trust us.
Exactly. And they don't even trust us to keep our chubby bottles inside the car because we'll pelt it outside. You drive in Tobago, it's clean, it's nice the way they take care of the place. There is that part of our culture, and it is part of our culture, needs to be confronted, and it is pervasive, right? The PNM have been able to make it part of their crusade that this is a UNC problem, and I don't doubt and deny that there is a problem, but there's a problem
Wait,
everywhere in this. And
wait, no, but you see, you asked me, we end up on this path because you
yeah,
said that I say that the PNM and the UNC is two sides of the same
yeah,
cancer. I want to tell you something.
yeah,
Kirk, I want to tell you something. Building a political party is like Sean Sunarine in our party. He described it as herding cats. It's not an easy thing. Building a political party is like trying to build a ship while you're at sea, and it's not easy.
yeah.
You live in a
Well,
country where
you know I have experience in that
you
myself.
I know, and I know that's why I'm talking to you. This conversation that we are having tonight is a rare conversation because there's people that could speak from experience who stood up for country and have been doing it for decades. I want to tell you something, Donna. Saying this to you with all the respect in the world. Trinidad needs you, but Trinidad don't need you in this version of the UNC. And I'll tell you this without fear of contradiction. The UNC leader right now is not the right leader. She may be loved, she may be revered, she could be an ambassador for the party, but she can't lead the fight that that party needs right now. And Keith Rowley is too incompetent. Is listen, the words I want to use to describe that man right now is better left for a commission of inquiry. What is going on in Trinidad and Tobago at every step of the way? 116 cases of a virus cost us $10 billion. This economy
Yeah,
was
exactly.
destroyed. Over the past 4.5 years, it's been raided and looted. They've been selling our crown jewels. Last night I hear China pick up Jamaica's port and gone with it. China owned Jamaica
Yeah.
port outright. That is coming. That is staring down the barrel of Trinidadians and Tobago. And all the
Well, okay.
on
And
TikTok.
let me interrupt you here on that because it happened to us already, right? I mean, people, I am not on this anti-China thing, right? A lot of people are. Now, when we built Point Lisas from our first oil boom, and I will give the PNM and Ken Julian credit for that. It was extremely important that we did it. We built what was it called? The Trinidad and Tobago Fertilizer Company, ISCOT, the Iron and Steel Company of Trinidad and Tobago. What was the methanol company called? But it was Trinidad and Tobago Methanol. So it was methanol, fertilizers, iron and steel, ammonia company, right? And so these were all nationally owned pet world-class industries. Point Lisas is a world-class industrial estate. It's incredible that we have such an industrial body in our island that at one point in the 90s was the number one exporter of ammonia in the world, the number one exporter of methanol in the world.
Number two,
We
urea exporter fertilizer, second to Russia
That's it.
only.
Okay. We opened up the global LNG trade in the 90s because nothing had been built in 25 years before that. So we had that. It was all nationally owned, right? What William's vision was to move from being down on the totem pole as just getting taxes from oil Texaco having the oil at the time, and Shell, and then giving us taxes. So we now owned petrochemical industries. So what happened after we got into debt with the Western banks? They sold it to Germans, Americans, Canadians. Basically, yeah.
And Indian became the richest, one the richest. This guy, he took our feeling, is cut, is spat, and turned it
that's right.
into
the leading in the
empire.
world. Yeah, and it started from here in Trinidad, right? Our banking system is controlled by Canadians, right? And so yes, it's not that I like the Chinese to control things, but this has been happening a long time. And our debt to China is just a small fraction than our lack of sovereignty to the whole world, in the West in particular.
There's a handful of people that watch these shows religiously that are avid intellectuals, and they salivate to hear people like you talk and give all the background information. But the average voter in Trinidad and Tobago is a low information voter. They've been bred that way. They've been conditioned that way. If you give them too much information, they will forget where you started from. And the point that they will forget the point that you were trying to make. And this is an important point that you're making here, because we've demonstrated that Trinidad could diversify, and we've demonstrated that Trinidad could find other fields to play in. But it is too easy for the lack of system and the lack of responsibility and the lack of enforcement, the lack of oversight, that allows people to come and manipulate the economy and loot it. What I watched took place with Petrotrin under this PNL government and the last PNL government, because you gave them credit for one thing. I want to tell you something. They are fireman and arson at the same time, because it is Malcolm Jones and Julian and them that loot Petrotrin.
That's right. And people don't understand the difference between $1 billion and $1 million, right? So $12 billion of debt under Petrotrin, it could overshadow every other thing that you could accuse the UNCF times 100, right?
Look at our economy. Look at our economy.
Yeah.
You take 13.5 billion actually out of Petrotrin. You take $25 billion out of the economy to bail out Clico, all in the same 2-week window. Come on. Which economy will taking that hit?
That is right. Yeah. It is, and especially a small economy like ours, and billions. I mean, when we're talking about billions, I can't remember how much 1,000 seconds is. It's like a couple.
A million seconds is 11 days. A billion seconds is 5 years.
Yeah, and a trillion is 35,000 years. Imagine it. And so when you start to talk about trillions or billions, it's mind-boggling. And you see, this is the type, and this can link into coronavirus.
Bring me back to law. Bring me back to law enforcement. Bring me back to oversight. The UNC have had 2.5 terms. People think Pandey had 1 term. He had 1.5. Bring me back to 2.5.
It was a year. It was a year of mis.
1.5 Kobo sweat. All right, bring me back to that.
Because they were fighting the whole year. The whole year they were. In fact, I will tell you. That 1818 period where Manning was for a year. How did he govern? On whose budget? It was the UNC budget. It was a budget that the UNC passed for themselves because they didn't have parliament. So that showed you they.
The moment you can't pass a budget of your own, the government collapses. That's our constitution, right? That's the most important function of the parliament. But I'm asking you this. If the UNC is not the same thing as the PNM, Kirk Meighoo, we are talking solutions tonight. I watched Faris Al-Rawi stand up with the Animals Act today and swap out $400 to $100,000 and swap out 2 weeks to a year. So he gave it teeth and made it functional in 15 minutes of all his beautiful, ebullient, pocket square wearing self. Why we can't do that for the other laws, and why haven't we done that?
Exactly. It's just like, it's just like who gets money quick and who gets money slow, right? It's the same thing. But now let me tell you, I would say the problem with the UNC is that it does not articulate its I'm going to have to use big words here, existential difference from the PNM. It doesn't articulate it properly. So when I say it's existential difference, what makes it deep down inside different? And that is its roots come, you see, people talk about the UNC being just another version of the DLP. It was not.
They don't. You say they don't. I want you to. And explain it in a way that 4-year-olds could understand. What do you think is the existential difference, the fundamental philosophical and ideological difference between the UNC and the PNM?
The UNC was formed out of the Black Power struggles, the trade union struggles, the struggles for cultural dignity and recognition.
ULF. That's not the UNC. The UNC is disconnected from ULF roots. If the UNC was connected to its ULF roots, when the UNC got back into office, the UNC would have reopened Caroni Limited. The UNC would have kept its roots in Rienzi. The UNC is disconnected. Kamla Prasad Bisesa didn't come from ULF, Kamla Prasad Bisesa came from the National Alliance for Reconstruction.
And the ONR, right? And Bo came from Tapia, and they came from the ONR strand. And this has been, and this is why I say the UNC has not articulated issues. But I'll tell you about Kamla, for example.
What is it different?
Okay, yeah. No.
That is
the difference because it's the difference because it's still there, but not articulated strongly enough. And I'll tell you how. For example, in the budget, in Kamla's budget response, this really turned me, right, to decide to throw my support, because I saw, you will see that if you can go back on my Facebook post, it's public. I was saying that for the whole 2019, making an analysis of the economy, where we were going, what Rowley did, how the performance of the GDP and everything. And I was saying this is the 1980s coming.
And the differences, that's ideological and philosophical differences. You said there's an existential difference.
No, I will tell you, right? So I saw that just
4-year-old. That 4-year-olds understand.
I will. So now, when the budget speech came and Colm did his thing, Kamla started to talk about when she used to sell bhaji, when she used to when she used to cut cane, right? Proud. She wasn't ashamed of it, right? And saying that this is a proud legacy to build on. Then she started to talk about the 12 economic drivers, which is the UNC's economic policy plans right now. She started to talk about and these economic drivers are based on our own effort of making our way in the world. So
you just gave credit to the PNM for giving us a step up in the petrochemical industry by creating Point Lisa. That was Kent Valley, those boys. Okay, no problem. But I want to tell you something. And I have to tell somebody today, the Black Power movement in Trinidad and Tobago marched against the black government of Eric Williams. Eric Williams came to power. Eric Williams came to power to release people from poverty, to release people from colonial masters.
That's right.
And 8 years later, when the Black Power movement was sweeping the world, people realized that Eric Williams had tightened the chains. That Trinidad and Tobago
and this is what I'm saying.
Had moved away from the colonials to the neo-colonials, that it is black-faced massa now, but it is still massa and nothing changed.
That's right. So the PNM comes from a struggle in the pre-colonial period that the DLP was engaged in to see who would control the independent state. They didn't change the structure. In fact, in any way that the structure was becoming different, the PNM tried to put it back towards the colonial. That's how neo-colonial they were.
UNC also bulldoze farmers' crops. Kirk, when we say justice mustn't just be done, it must be seen to be done. If you have an existing, I want to say this, right? I want to say this to you. Because you, as the political leader, the founder of a movement, you had a movement, the DNA. You could tell me the ideology and the philosophy and the underpinnings of the DNA. I could tell you that for the Progressive Empowerment Party. I want to describe the Progressive Empowerment Party for you in one phrase that a 4-year-old could understand. Like a rising tide lifts all boats. And that's us. The Progressive Empowerment Party intends to be the rising tide that lifts all boats. There are too many things in this country that are set up for inequality to thrive. I am the person who asked, how could Fatima College exist 15 feet from Mokorapo Secondary? One is a prestige school and the other is a failed education institution. All of them getting the same funds, the same curriculum, the same Ministry of Education. How? How is it possible? Teachers trained in the
Because
same teacher college. Don't tell me that mommy and daddy just drop the children and pick back up the children. Don't tell me mommy and daddy's come and barbecue twice a year and go and wine in Fatima Fete. That can't make a difference. Something is fundamentally wrong in this country.
that's right.
And people
No,
are
no,
being left behind.
yeah, and I will tell you that, you see, that is part of the colonial culture which the PNM represents. They have the richest constituencies and the poorest, and they live cheek by jowl. The headquarters of the PNM party is an old plantation style house, right? It is a the ideologies of the plantation. So in other words, we are the only country in the world when there's a recession, they increase taxes. Interest rates go up. They put pressure on poor people during a recession so that massa could still live high, so that the government does not have to cut back. In any economics 101 class, right? What you need to do during a recession is stimulate spending among the population. What the PNM does is raise gas prices, raise taxes. The UNC never ever does that because it's part of its ideology. They don't raise taxes. They support independent business people. They understand people who want to be left alone by the state. The PNM's whole ideology.
That again, you keep offering economic examples as an existential difference. If you say
Yeah.
if you're saying to me that the UNC is more capitalist leaning and more small government leaning, I'll take that from you. I take that. I
Yeah,
accept that.
and I'm
But I want
populist.
to say, but my friend, when I talk about two sides of the same cancer, I am talking about the two things that I say that the Progressive Empowerment Party want commissions of inquiry into, and that is white collar criminality and the drug trade and all of its children, money laundering and corruption and all of
Right.
the guns and the murder. The United National Congress under Kamala Prasad says, I want to give you some information now. You could ask Gary Griffith this. Gary liked to talk, you know. You could ask Gary Griffith. Gary inherited a document in the Ministry of National Security called the Maritime Security Wall. The cost of setting up the Maritime Security Wall is less than 20% of the annual national security budget of Trinidad and Tobago. And the moment that it was complete, 3 miles out at sea, repurposed barges that ringed the country, connected by the 360-degree radar that we bought, that could have seen into Florida and Brazil, that would have seen anything coming linked by sonar buoys equipped with fast attack helicopters and interceptor boats, would have stopped and searched every marine craft out at sea for drugs, guns, human trafficking, and other contraband. And it would have ended drug trafficking and money laundering in this country. How come the UNC did not do that? One. Two, you want an economic hit? This is an economic hit. Under the UNC, banks in Trinidad and Tobago stopped paying interest to depositors' funds. The moment they were allowed to stop paying interest to depositors' funds, they were able to remove an entire column from the cost of doing business, which is that interest. They didn't have to pay it
Yeah.
anymore. They replaced it with a net gain. Yes, now they replaced it with a net gain. They introduced rapacious fees. Banks make
Yeah.
billions of dollars in this country,
That's right.
warehousing money, charging you fees to hold your money, and makes no money, no credit available
That's right.
to the economy. So the same
That's right.
small
Exactly.
business that you say that the UNC stands for, where are they supposed to get their money from?
Yeah.
The money launderers?
Exactly. No, I totally agree. And I will say this. You have seen it, I'm sure, in your party. I think you probably slightly referred to it just now. I saw it when I was in with the DNA, and that you will be there will be attempts to infiltrate by this whole corrupt society that is everywhere in the judiciary, in the banking system, in our most hallowed halls of wherever you want to talk about, from academia to business to whatever you want to talk about. So you have these corrupt elements everywhere in the society, and they will infiltrate political parties. I'm not stupid.
Saying
We
that
all
Kirk
know
Meighoo,
that.
Dr. Kirk Meighoo, are you saying that the UNC was infiltrated with drug money?
I don't know about drug money. I can't say, but they certainly were under Bastille.
Come on,
We
really,
saw that
right?
when
Really
Bastille
back.
Pandey started to play golf with the same parasitic oligarchy, and he betrayed his own ideology. Right? What I'm saying is that the UNC is not the leadership; it's actually the base, and the base still have those values. The base still believes in that, and the base still wants that to be articulated, and it still responds to that. And the party has to respond to the
So
base.
I need to bring you back to this. I have to bring you back to this. The base, that base in the UNC, the UNC could claim. The UNC could claim that when they were marginalized and set apart as a recalcitrant minority for Eric Williams' 30 years, for the 30-year reign that the UNC family, the patriarch of the family had to settle for getting half his salary in white caroni rum and flour and split peas and oil from the what you call the co-op shop, that they get half your salary paid through
Yeah.
there. So we
Mhm.
learn, we invent Sahina and doubles. We invent all of that because people had to make do with what they had. You could tell me that they took their marginalized and that families put their children through school and educated them and brought a wave of doctors and lawyers and engineers. I accept all of that. But you can't tell me that the political ideology of the UNC is any different from the PNM when the same people, I'll tell you this, the same people who benefit financially, the big players, I ain't talking about the overnight appearers like Ish and small money. If Ish wanted a billion is small. We've lost $3 trillion in this country. That is $3,000 billion. That is enough money. If we had spent $1 a second from the first minute 12:01 August 31st, 1962, we would have spent 93,000 years worth of dollars. Why
Yeah.
didn't the United National Congress under Kamala Prasad Bisesa put things in place for the average small businessman in this country to access qualified finance? I watch businesses in Trinidad and Tobago open and overnight dominate the industry because of access to money.
Exactly.
When Mario
Let me say
Sabga Abu, when Mario
that is
Sabga
something.
Abu told Anthony, let me just say this one thing. When Mario Sabga Abu told Anthony Boudin, he is the Starbucks of the Caribbean. He opened 126 stores in 10 years. Everybody was flabbergasted by that. I asked him how. How did you get the finance to open a store a month for 10 years?
Yeah.
And that miracle should be shared. Was it Republic Bank? Was it Royal Bank? Was it Scotia Bank? Was it a combination of all three? Tell the rest of the coffee sellers and pizza sellers and donut sellers and other hopeful burger fryers in this country who would like to open 126 stores too, how you get the finance to run the business. Because the operational credit for a brand new restaurant on any in the most basic, you're a doctor in any basic school, I tell you, you better be able to run for a loss for a year. So you're running 126 stores of overlapping losses until you reach an economy of scale where you could pick up your gross profit, could absorb all of those losses. Where did that overdraft facility come from?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. There are many questions about how McEnany was bought, right? On what basis? There's a lot of talk about it. I don't know that it was done by cash in a suitcase, but that's what people talk about, right? I mean, where the we
It was
know
suit,
we
you will get a letter for saying that. Right now, the
Yeah,
courts in Trinidad and Tobago are being used to prevent people asking questions like that. Like
yeah,
I am supposed to ask who authorized the building of Grand Bazaar on the lay-by for the highway, on the highway reserve. Who said it's okay? Sign off here. All the land that
yeah.
has been reclaimed, all
We
the
need
land
to
that has been
find out
reclaimed,
about that.
moving down, all the land, Peaks, Sabga Bayside Towers, West Moorings, Bahadu Singh, all of those lands. Somebody said today, don't just call Syrians, call Indians. I call in everybody. All those who were involved in any kind of questionable doing in this
Anybody.
country. Somebody needs to answer for it. You can't sit
Yes.
down high on your wallet and talk about people. I had to tell Michael now who's today, Michael now who's talking about people living on handouts. I said, brother man, you and your brother-in-law Faris Alrawi taking hundreds of millions of dollars a year in empty buildings in Sinclair. That is handouts.
Let me tell you, we had a plan in the DNA called because we had this analysis that listen, if you jailed everybody that was involved in corruption in this country, half the country would be in jail. It is so it is
I don't think,
so
but I
pervasive.
think the Chamber of Commerce, I think DOMA, I think political parties, PNM and UNC, and I think high level public servants who allow this
I,
to
I,
pass.
I think board members on private companies have turned their heads at many things, have decided not to listen. When certain things happen in board meetings, and it people have been complicit. They know, and they just let it pass. Right. That's been one thing
Why?
that a
Why?
failing of mine. I've been called
Why?
not a
Why
player
let it pass? Why they let it pass?
because they'll be victimized and they don't want to be victimized. So that's what it is. So they will be bypassed.
Cheaper to bribe.
Like,
When you have
like
loose money, it's
myself,
cheaper
they
to
would be
bribe.
called not a team player, right? That's the thing. They want a team player, right? And so that is the reality. So let me say the point I was going to make is that because it's so pervasive, because people have done it in a way sometimes I don't know if innocently is the word, but they've just sort of they've let it pass because it's kind of the culture. What we need to have is something like a truth and reconciliation commission, a fact and forgiveness, right? Where
Wait a
we need
minute.
to
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. No, 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 no. I can't agree to that. And I can't let that be said. We need a truth and fact commission. I agree with that.
yeah,
Kirk,
yeah,
a lot of people still hold office in this country that should not be holding office because they
yes,
criminally corrupt, that they've
that's right.
engaged in activities for criminally corrupt funds that are themselves illegal.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what we have to figure out the modalities of it, but it has to be something like that where we are able to freely discuss everything, all the
Commissions,
rackets. Yeah,
commissions of
no,
inquiry.
yeah, and the
Give them
commission of
teeth.
increase back to that system of racket,
No, but give them
because
teeth. Make them functional.
yeah,
Bring judges from the lords of the Privy Council. Bring them to commission to manage
yeah.
our commissions of
But,
inquiry.
but this is a historic thing. I mean, how many people remember that our Minister of Energy, our former Minister of Energy, who became our second Prime Minister, had a preference for blonde prostitutes, according to the testimony of.
Well, I want to tell you something. I want to tell you something. And I want to quote Robin Williams when he was talking about Bill Clinton. I don't care if you sleep with chickens if you get the job done. People's sexual preferences and who they praying to and who they lying in with at night, what you drink, I don't care about that. Brother, you could be falling down drunk if you functional with. Because to me, all the drunk they call Pamela drunk, Pete Rowley sober is worse than her. So bring back
Yeah.
drunkie.
I'm,
And
I'm, I'm
just
I'm not talking about his proclivities. Yeah, I'm not talking about his proclivities. I'm talking about the bribing, because that's what it was. It was a bribe. It was a tessero. I have the testimony that was done in the United States for it. But these bribes were made for favorable um, favorable laws and taxation for the oil.
$60
Because
for
we did
oil.
not have, because we only had one TV station, TTT, which was government owned, right? And we had no social media. We had, well, the weeklies were our version of social media back then, but because that's where people could talk back to power, and you don't have to be part of the elite to be in the Guardian or. Well, the Express, I guess, started out as a rebel paper when it started, but yeah, but our we only had one rate. It was two radio stations we had, right?
It was a rebel paper. It was an anti-establishment paper. It was East Indian people and small money. I remember Vernon Charles. Was that the guy from Solo? Yeah.
Yeah,
No, that he's a Charles. But that those were the people. Ken Gordon, Tajmol Hussain was the secretary. He's the
yeah,
man that responsible for writing much of our constitution that he doesn't get credit for.
yeah,
But Kirk, I need to say this to you again, and we could go
yeah,
on and on and on. But I need for
yeah,
you to understand. I need for you to understand this because for me to trust Kamla Prasad Bisesa again, she can't give me sound bites. Kamla Prasad Bisesa have to be able to say this was wrong. It took place when I was in the cabinet under Pandey, and it materialized again in my government. Ish Galbaran Singh and Steve Ferguson, Yako 9, 12, 14, 17, and all the different versions of the gang happened under Pandey when Kamala was the Minister of Education and in the cabinet. She had a responsibility to the country to stand up and say, hey, I ain't signed up for this. But she didn't. And when her government came to office, her government was able to corrupt the actual process of writing law to free those people. She don't get off the hook just so. And she can't give me the nonsense. It's not. I hear her people saying Brian Stone and God Christopher and Mikey K, all of those who are paid from UNC dollars, they say, and let me tell you something, when I call names, it is because I want these people to wake up and stand up for country. Mikey K and Andy Williams and God Christopher and Brian Stone, I know, have good hearts, but they are politically driven and they see only PNM and UNC as options. They need to call out their party too. They need to be able to say, listen, if it's wrong under PNM, it's wrong under UNC too. Yes or no?
yes. And we need to have that type of internal democracy and push it forward. Right? And what we need to do is to keep continuously working to make the party better. And what I am saying is that the spirit of the party, the people in the party, and I mean the base more than anything else, right? They are for that. They are for national unity. They are for the involvement of small people in the economy. They are for,
The UN,
sorry?
the UNC?
Yes,
You say the
right?
UN is for that?
Base.
But Kirk, the
Yes.
special purpose companies
And,
are managed.
and what we need to do, that ideology still survives in the base of the party. It still is there.
I'm not
It
talking
still
about
is.
voters, I'm not talking about the supporters. I am talking about the
That's what
leadership
I
of
am talking about. Yeah.
Patrick
So
Manning.
what I'm talking about is the base.
Patrick Manning was guided. Listen, the base of the PNM and the base of the UNC is heart and soul Trinbagonians. I have no
Yeah.
argument. I have no argument with them. They
But
are
I
the
no,
people.
but I will tell you my criticism of is not necessarily the.
But I want to say this, Kirk, if she
Yeah.
met, if Patrick Manning was guided to create special purpose companies like HTC and Udicot and Sporty T and Vemcot and EFCL and EMBD to end run the tenders, to vote into a
That's
vote,
right.
hundreds of millions of dollars that you could spend
That's right.
at will without accountability. Kirk, the UNC met that. The UNC
Yeah.
knew. Vernon DeLima is on this thread now. Winston Dukaran knew. Prakash Ramadan knew. The Congress of the People knew. The People's Partnership
I
government came to office with all of us.
I wish they shut all of it down. I agree. I wish they shut all of it down. They didn't.
They had
Right?
5 years and
Agree.
6 months, Kirk. They had 5 years and
Yeah,
6 months.
it was a failing. I admit it was a failing.
So
I wish they did it.
we've spent enough time on the UNC. But when you say to me that I can't say that the two sides of the same cancer, I have reason to say it, and that's why I say
I,
it.
I yes, but what? Yeah, I understand what you're saying and why you're saying. What you are saying is that you believe that both parties have failed to address certain fundamental issues, and I can agree with you on that. I can agree with you on that. But
I will tell you,
what I
let's look at the show
yeah,
right now. Kirk Meighoo, Dr. Kirk Meighoo is one of the strongest patriots I know. And I will stand on that without fear of contradiction from anybody. I'll argue with anybody. Kirk, I know you long time. And as I said, I found a picture, and it is Philip Alexander, David Abdullah, Keith Rowley, Ansel Roche, Kirk Meighoo. That's the picture. That was the front seat of the Section
yeah, yeah,
34.
yeah.
I'm
Mhm.
out here with
I
you long time. There have times we will disagree. There have times we will go different paths. But I know that your heart is for Trinidad and Tobago. As I tell people, Brian Stone, he comes across rabid and UNC. But I know Brian Stone has a heart for Trinidad and Tobago. Mikey K and Andy Williams and Lennox and the rest of the ground report. They have no choice, like Barbara Burke and the Shout have no choice but to sell themselves to the UNC because the PNM is a criminal organization. The PNM. If we had a commission of inquiry into the operation of the governments of Eric Williams, George Chambers, Patrick Manning, and Keith Rowley, wouldn't end good for a lot of people.
Not at all. And we're talking billions and billions of dollars. You see, I wanted to tie this up to the coronavirus thing again. You see, because the PNM is part of this neo-colonial imperialist agenda where they are for big government, big corporations, multinational corporations controlling everything, and where we are essentially serfs. And there are some people who are fine with being well-paid serfs, and I think that's unfortunate, right?
Why the
I'm against.
Chinese companies then? Why the UNC
Sorry.
that cursed Chinese company that built Napa and Sapa and Scarborough and Taruba? Why that same company, China Railroad and the other organization, why they were allowed to build, they were allowed to continue? What I'm saying, the UNC carried themselves like the devil could take tomorrow. They
Yeah,
carried themselves and
yeah,
Jack Warner.
I would
And
tell
see,
you
I
what.
remember
One
reading
thing
that
that
book,
yeah, yeah. One
Jack
thing I've
Warner's
always
position
about
that
the
yesterday
UNC.
was and today is
Yeah,
today
no,
is a wrong
no,
position.
absolutely. And what one thing I've always argued about with the UNC when I was not a member of the UNC, but I saw the existential difference, and I used to be frustrated that the UNC didn't appear to see it themselves, and that within the UNC there would be a discourse where people would say, oh no, well we shouldn't do this because the PNM does it this way, so we should do it that way. For example, let me give you one kind of superficial example, but it's important because we can see it. Do you know why the PNM has 3 deputy leaders? I don't know any other organization in the world that has 3 deputy leaders. A deputy leader is supposed to be someone that takes the place of the leader, right? But the PNM has 3 so that means who takes the place of the leader when the leader's gone? That was done on purpose by Williams because the first deputy leader was Patrick Solomon, but he and Solomon fell out in '66, and that's what Get the Hell Out of Here happened. I won't go into the story, but that's where that happened. Next person who was the deputy leader was A&R Robinson, and then A&R Robinson and Williams fell out. So they changed the constitution.
That went on to become
Yeah.
WNR.
So then he changed it to have 3 deputy leaders so that they wouldn't have that fallout. So now when the UNC formed, they put 3 deputy leaders too because they were merely copying the UN and the PNM. And I have always argued against that to the UNC, even when I was not a member, and I will still argue it now that I've decided to become that the UNC must understand its difference and express it within its internal party structure.
You are a political scientist, sir. If
Yeah.
if you cannot easily describe the existential difference, and that's I'm not trying to embarrass you. I'm just trying to say that they so closely mirror each other. Look, you're talking about 3 deputy political
No,
leaders.
people. Yeah. No, that's in the structure. But the thing is that it is people oriented. It is people oriented, and it understands the diversity of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Whereas the PNM is a statist party. The
I would agree
state
with
will
you there.
take.
I'll tell you that the UNC mutated. Basdeo Pande's UNC tried to be the ULF in long pants and long sleeve shirts. And it tried to take the ULF out of the sugarcane and create a more centrist party. I get that, and he coined national unity. But Basdeo Pande is a cunning fox, and he's been called Silver Fox not because of his hair. He's called Silver
Yeah.
Fox because he's cunning and wily. And he said he will sleep with the devil. And he said to him, politics has a morality of its own. So it mutates to suit whatever it will take to give it government. That's not an ideology, sir.
No, and if you look at the record, right? If you look at the record of the UNC in government, it's very short terms, because listen, we have from 1956 up to 2020, there were only 2 terms that the UNC were there, and they shared it both times. It wasn't just the UNC, so you have all the internal problems as well. But if you look at the record of achievement, just in, and those 2 5-year terms were separated by 10 years, right? I mean, it is quite a bit. I do think it should have been more focused. I do think they could have done more, but
2007,
even when
the only reason
even when they
did not
veered away from their core, even when they did veer away, and I will say they did, even when they did, that core was still there. It was never completely
so
extinguished.
when Basdeo Panday had an internal election so that Winston Tukaran could become the political leader, but Basdeo Panday would remain the chairman and he would still remain the opposition leader, it was a distinction without a difference. When the Congress of the People left the UNC, that was the heart. The same heart we're talking about, that's what left. They represented
I very much disagree with that.
All right, but that's why. But that's why the ONR floating vote was attracted to it, because Dukaran was making all the right.
Exactly. So right. So that's what happened.
So all I'm saying to you is, in 2007, the reason the UNC lost that election, it wasn't 10 years, The UNC fought itself. The UNC was fighting itself harder than it was fighting the PNM. When Ramesh Lawrence, Trevor Sudama, and Ralph Maraj formed Team Unity, it was a gang of 4 with Sadiq Bash, if you remember. But Sadiq get cold feet, jump back in with Pandey. Like how Vasan Bharat was the last man to leave Pandey after Kamla beat Pandey. All of this is our history too. And people
that's an important point. Fratricidal wars. Yeah, fratricidal wars are deadlier than wars between strangers. Right?
Same thing. When they had government, Pandey promised Ramesh Lawrence Maharaj that he was the heir apparent. Kamla tried the same foolishness with Rudal Monilal. It's called parking power. And that's what they tried to do. And now it backfired on Pandey, and it's going to backfire on Kamla too. Rudal Monilal and Ramesh Lawrence Maharaj, they mirror each other too. Ramesh and Team Unity pulled Pandey down when Pandey tried to hand the power of the party to the Clico group with Carlos John.
Exactly.
Remember?
Yeah, what they were trying to do. Because Pandey was selling out the UNC. He was selling out his own vision. He was selling out what he built. And Ramesh was defending that. And Ramesh was the democratically elected. What was the position? Was it deputy leader or was it chair? I can't remember whatever the position was, but it was second in command, whatever that position was.
He got it in the Pandey cult. Got it by Pandey's anointment. And when
no, you have to, because it always happened. This is what happened. Let me tell you.
I remember a ladder.
Listen.
Bring Ramesh into politics. A ladder brought Ramesh into politics.
Okay. You remember ladders, man. Anyway, from the mirror. But you have to see what happened. The first time, was it Ramnath? Yeah, Ramnath. Pandey wanted Humphrey to be the deputy leader, right? Because the whole national unity thing. But Ramnath and Ramprasad Parasuram, they had actually won it from the membership. And then Pandey undermined the party's will to make sure Humphrey was there. And that caused a huge split in the party.
You mean like
Same
what's
thing
going on
happened.
now with Rudal Munilal and Jolene John? You mean like what Kamala is doing, Rudal Munilal, with Jolene John? Hoping that Jolene John could bring East-West corridor votes?
No, there's no election fallout from that. Those party dynamics.
They use the word undermining.
Yeah. Because what I mean is undermining the electoral process. Because the same thing happened when Ramesh won, and then but Pandey wanted Carlos John. So then he undermined the executive again. So it's a pattern that happened there. But the people, and it goes to show every time, they want the fighters there, right? Instead of the cosmetic, right? So I will say both Jolene and Rudal Munilal are fighters. Neither of them are cosmetic. Neither of them are cosmetic.
Oh, I'm not saying that. But I'm just saying that you can't park power in politics.
Yeah, you can. As Pandey said, power is not a cow. He can't give it to anybody.
And yet he's trying to do it now with Michaela again. What he did with Dukaran, he's trying to do with Michaela again. And wasting this poor child's career. Because time is passing. And she is hoping for a slip and a fall to drop her in, that hoping that guys like Jagdio Singh and Dave Tanko and the rest of them will anoint her to slip in if Kamala slip out. There are a lot of people want that position. And those people are not going to give it up easily. When Ramesh formed Team Unity, it was to break the UNC. Jack Warner formed the ILP to break the UNC. Winston Dukaran formed the COP to break the UNC. You cannot keep giving people all of these big promises and then breaking it and not expect that they will hold you in mind and come back at you.
But let me tell you something else. That culture is not only the result of broken promises, or alleged broken promises, because I won't even get into that. But that culture is part of the vibrant internal democracy of the UNC. And let me justify that. You see, gas price. No. I need to finish it. You see something like the gas price rise or a tax increase? Let me tell you, if a UNC political leader did that as prime minister, the UNC membership are the people who will cuss the most that prime minister. The PNM culture is quite different, saying this gas price rise is good. We like this tax hike. We love this. That there is that whole plantation culture in the word, that whole culture of obedience, of the whip, that is so much part of the PNM culture. That is not part of the UNC culture. The UNC culture is much cantankerous. It's because of that, and it is harder to manage. And so you get all these breakaways. You get all these people trying to manage these independent people who will break away. But
you want me to leave you with that? The same way we got DAC out of PNM when A&R Robinson left, and got ONR out of PNM when Carl Hudson Phillips left. We got COP, ILP, and Team Unity never became a party. Team Unity was always really just an internal organization that wanted power in it.
I want to give you now a lesson. You may know it, but many viewers will not know it. It's Lloyd Best's 9 political tribes of Trinidad and Tobago. Every Trinidadian and Tobagonian must know this. It's a shame it's not taught. I used to teach it when I used to teach both at UE and elsewhere. Right? But the thing is that we don't, this foolishness of two races, it doesn't exist in Trinidad. And what describes it much better is that we have 9 political tribes in Trinidad and Tobago. And it explains everything you just said. There's not the Afro, there's not what people talk about as the African group is really 3 different groups. It is the Afro-Saxons. Those are those Africans who have excelled at Anglo-Saxon culture and assimilation and so forth, right? So and they are totally integrated into that world. Then you have the Garveyites, and these are the people who rebel against that, the Black Power people, the cultural rebels against that. Then you have the Butlerites, who are the trade union people who also rebel against that. And these groups have an uneasy unity. And those are the Afro-Trinis, right? And so then and the Indian group is really 3 different groups as well. You have the Hindus based in Karani, traditionally based in agriculture, and in Central. Then you have the Presbyterians, traditionally based in South, who are a lot like the Afro-Saxons in being Christianized, in being much more assimilated. And then you have the Muslims, who are, interestingly enough, navigated the Christian world much easier than the Hindus, where in San Fernando West, San Juan.
What's the argument you making?
What I'm saying is this fluidity is that, and then you have on the Afro side the Tobagonians, and the Tobagonians are curious. They're a lot like the Garveyites in some ways, and a lot like the Hindus, which is why you had the DAC DLP alliance, the DAC ULF alliance, the NAR UNC alliance. You have these because they have an affinity. Then you have the French Creoles, of course, which again is internally divided between the Portuguese, the French, the English, the Syrians, the Chinese, right? But you can all still fit them into one group, although they have their divisions. And then
why you put the Syrians in Portuguese? Pink skin? Syria's closer to Africa.
Yeah, I know. But in Trinidad,
the Middle East is closer to Africa than to Portugal.
Exactly.
But in Trinidad, pink skin. So I want to tell you something.
That is right.
Your whole 9 tribes is 3 tribes: black skin, brown skin, pink skin.
Okay. No. And then I will tell you, right? And the other is
money and money.
So no, but what happened is that when the PNM came to power, they didn't have all the groups together. It was the Afro-Saxons, it was the Muslims, it was the Presbyterians, and they stayed with the PNM until the end. Whether it's in San Fernando West, in San Juan, Kamaluddin Muhammad, Errol Mahabir. The intellectuals left with C.L.R. James. The Tobagonians left with A.N.R. Robinson. And you see what the NAR did is they brought all those groups together. And you see that with the COP, that was the Presbyterians gone off.
That's wrong. You leave it out. You know what you're leaving out? You're leaving out one word. You're leaving out one word.
Which
money.
is?
Money. In Trinidad, you could be black as the ace of spades. If you have money, you're overnight white. You ever notice that? You ever notice how in Trinidad and Tobago, the collapse of the French Creoles in the 1980s recession gave rise to the Syrian community as the new pink.
Yeah. And they bought
all
out
of this our history. They will pretend to you. They will pretend to you that talking fact is somehow a wrong thing in a country that is allergic. We are fact-resistant people.
Exactly. I will put something to you even further back, because I remember, talking to Fernandez about this, Joe Fernandez, how the Portuguese used to be excluded from the whites. Right? And so when he took over the Trinidad Country Club, that was a scandal, right? When a Dervertai, when a very upper class French Creole, they got married to a Portuguese at one point, That was a big scandal in that community. There was a time when the Portuguese were not part.
My
Over
father,
things do
my
change.
father, my father,
Yeah,
my father is pure Syrian.
yeah,
My father. You talk about scandal in a community. How you want to talk about excommunication? I
yeah,
know
yeah, yeah,
excommunication. I am half Syrian, but my
yeah,
mother is not Syrian. But anyway, I want to say this to you. Everything that you just described, and to all of those people looking on, Kirk Meighoo is a brilliant historian, and he will tell you where all our feet stand in the murky lagoon that we all live in. But I want
yeah,
to say this to you. In the pub, in the club, in the park, in the gym, in the jail, in the criminal activity, people don't see race in Trinidad and Tobago. We are not. And David Rudder, when he said how we vote is not how we party, was an insult. It wasn't a compliment. I mean, I'm not saying that David Rudder was trying to insult us, but the fact that he could say it is an insult to us. That's
yeah.
how we vote. It's not how we party because you just gave us a political segregation that borders on an apartheid system. But it is
No,
not how we.
because exactly,
I'm
no,
just
because
saying,
what I want to say, you see, this theory was actually first put forward in the 50s, but it was 13 groups, and it's called plural and differential acculturation. Because what he's saying is that although you have these groups and they largely marry within each other, that's how the original anthropologist Dan Crowley identified it. Lloyd did it later as politics. But each group in Trinidad is not self contained. Each group in Trinidad knows at least two or three other groups intimately. They might have gone to a Muslim school or a Hindu school or to this church or they play in this band. There's no way any group can live an insular life in Trinidad. Trinidad is inherently fluid.
exactly. And my point, when the whole 1% thing came up, after that
Yeah,
Anthony Bourdain, what I said to the people who were so ridiculous in their claims, I said to them, I said to all of them who were talking about we may be 5,000, but we're the most powerful. First of all, the rest of the Arab community did not appreciate them and their little clique inside the Syrian community speaking for all Syrians. That's one thing. And I can tell
mhm.
you, because I don't really get the newsletter being a half Syrian, but I know that nobody appreciated it, and all of the good and decent people didn't like being held together in that arrogant boast. And the second and most important thing, and I said to him, I said to them, I said it is every other race behind your counter and in front of your counter, giving you labor and consumption why you have any business at all. And that if tomorrow Trinbagonians en masse who reject you are the most powerful claim, decide to quit the job and stop buying what you sell, in quick time you're back down the road calling Patik, Patik, want some cloth? And that should not be where we go in our conversations. And when people, because I keep calling out people who are vexed, Susie Hadi, Gerald Aboud, Michael Moses, who are Michael Nahus, who take me up for saying this. The reason the 1% claim has been laid at the feet of the Syrian community in Trinidad and Tobago is because of that video. And they never, besides Gary Aboud and Ghassan Youssef, I mean, there were Rudy Kuri, there were a lot of good and decent Syrian people who stood
Yeah,
up and
of
said this is
course,
nonsense. They didn't
of
get the
course.
media time. They didn't get the media
Yeah.
time. But Kirk,
I will tell you, I remember liming with some Syrian friends of mine and so forth, and they were using a lot of Arab words and things like that. And then they saw that I didn't understand some of it, and they looked at me surprised. You know, you're not bilingual? Hey, I thought he knew. So, I mean, the thing is that they let, people can, I didn't know some of the words, but they expected me to know some of them because no group in Trinidad and Tobago is self-contained. We all live together, mix together, are intimately involved in more than one group. Nobody at all is
should be
only.
allowed should be allowed to segregate themselves from society and then benefit from society. And I absolutely agree with you. Gone are the days when the Queen's Park Oval and the Country Club should be allowed to exist in Trinidad and Tobago with segregationist policies. And I absolutely agree with you. But it is time for all of us to decide not to use the segregation of the past to distress the present. We're poisoning the present. We need to change that. We need to really come together. I'm not telling you interbreed. I think Trinidad and Tobago will do well to abolish all these separation days, like Arrival Day and Emancipation Day and all of these things, because every claim could be made for everything, and give people a weekend at the start of the year and call it national.
I will tell you why I disagree with that. Right? The reason why I disagree with that is because we are made up of specific groups of people with specific histories that make up our national history. And that
All I'm
each
saying
state.
is, give you a national day on that day, celebrate your
No,
stuff.
no, because what we do is on an annual basis, we reenact and remember our history.
If there is not a Syrian day and a Lebanese day and a Chinese day and a
Sure.
Jewish holiday. So when do you stop making
We, we, we,
holidays?
we don't have an infinite amount of people, right? I mean, it's like five. We could say
At some point, Brother Marvin's story have to ring true. At some point, we have to say we are all brotherhood of the boat.
That's
At
right.
some point,
And we have our Independence Day and our Republic Day and our national days.
You can have a national day and say this day or this weekend, we are going to celebrate what makes us unique.
And let me tell you, and this is one of the things that was different about the UNC because the argument was for Indian Arrival Day to just be called Arrival Day. And again, the whole point of Indian Arrival Day was to say that, listen, we're here, right? We're here and deal with it. This is part of the national fabric. And that is
right.
Also, that is why Pandey also insisted that Shouter Baptist, the Shouter Baptist Liberation Day is recognized too. Because
what happened to who we call the Karys and the Arawaks? Why
absolutely, they are totally unrecognized, and we do
have a. We talk about Trinidad and Tobago, like when the Spanish landed here, they had 7 people living here, and that was the thing. There was a massacre of people. We don't even know the history of what happened to the actual inhabitants of.
And let me just tell people, what does Sangre Grande mean? You know? Sangre Grande?
Big blood.
That's right. Sangre Chiquito, little blood, right? What is Sodo? That's when they and Sodo is when they jumped off the cliff into the water rather than be defeated by the Spanish. That's part of
If you and I talk about the history of Trinidad and Tobago, how lands were distributed by the amount of slaves you had, but history. No, but you have to at some point accept history as the past, learn from it, move forward from it. I am not saying that there should not be some sort of a conversation about those who were left behind deliberately. Kirk, I know if your primary school that your children go to is not functioning as powerful as another primary school that have a lot of history, but it was built during slavery times and it was built on segregationist models and it still has segregationist aspects and is used as a slipstream into this prestige school system, we have a problem. That's a holdover from a time. That is a holdover from a time when we were not as sophisticated and as loving and as we like to pretend all of we one people, then let all of we be one people before every office of state. Let's make sure justice is beaten out from a blind position as it should be. Yeah? Let's make sure that red, white, black, or green, and every shade in between, when you go to the bank for a loan for your business, you are judged on the quality of your proposal and the potential of your business.
Absolutely. I mean, the banking system, we could have a whole special on that because that is the heart of exploitation in this country.
We've had a conversation with Dr. Kirk Meighoo. You are not going to have this kind of conversation inside the UNC, and I'm going to fight to get you to stand back up in the middle Trinidad and Tobago needs people to stand now, especially post-COVID, post-oil collapse, because I don't think we're coming back from this oil price. We actually going to need people to stop being segregationist, elitist gangs and people getting together by color and by tribe and by religion and come together as one people under one flag and find all the ways to make sure that what happens after school in Westmoreland happens in Beetham and Laventille too. And if it doesn't, we need to find out why. We need to go down in Caroni and make sure that the children in Caroni get the same opportunities that the children in Valsayn get until we, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, and I'm telling this to everybody who considers themselves adult and compassionate and mature, if your life is built on leaving others behind, if you are benefiting from entitlement and elitism, you're not really a Trinbagonian. You're a colonist still. And we need to fix that. We need to make sure. Stop the
We
blame
are
game.
we are a country of 1 million people. That is
1.4.
1.4. I mean, yeah, so 1.4 million people. But that is nothing. That is nothing. We should be able to solve every income, infrastructural problem. We need the will to do so. We simply need the will to do so, and the politics. And people want it, and it is up to us to get involved in the politics and to shape the politics as we think it should be.
Kirk, a lot of people come to this show and think that I am Hema Ramkizun and Fazir Mohammed as a mishmash of Stephen Rees. This is not an interview show. This is a debate show. I bring critical thinkers to this show, and we are going to cross-talk and over-talk, and we're going to fight and we're going to argue, but we're going to try to get to consensus, because at the end of the day, we hope that all the bright and thinking people who have compassion and heart for Trinidad and Tobago will want to be on the same page of writing a new tomorrow that gives everybody hope and opportunity. Yes?
Of course, and the thing is that it's needed now more than ever. I mean, they have this COVID-22. You know, I don't wish them bad. I wish them the best. But we need to have radical ideas, and I am not going to depend on that team for as such. I hope they do produce the best, but we need to put something together to have a radically different path. So we cannot go back to normal. One, the lockdown has been extended too long. Too many businesses are going to close up and never come back again. Too many people have lost their jobs. The wealth inequality is too much. The global economy now is mashed up with the oil industry and trade routes, and then they're going to continue these social distancing, which is going to put economies at a lower equilibrium. It is going to be a disaster, and we have to think of something radically different so that we can all benefit. But we have to put our heads together and cross parties on this.
Kirk, we are going to have to learn to live. Well, the Guardian called me today to ask me about elections and what we think, because an election has to happen by December 22nd. And I said to them, regardless of what is going on in the world, we've already learned to live with COVID-19. We put on our masks, we sanitize, we wash hands, we social distance, we keep it to ourselves, and we are going to learn to live with COVID-19 in the background, like we learned to live with HIV/AIDS in the background, and take preventative protection measures against those, whatever they are, for as long as they exist. And that herpes, there are things that came and appeared in our lifetime that we knew this is come to stay. If COVID-19 is a mutated coronavirus that is here to stay, we are going to have to learn to live with it and carry on as a country. But you said just now something, and I want to agree with you, because normal only worked for a small handful that benefited. Normal concentrated the wealth of Trinidad and Tobago in the hands of a few. Normal.
That's right.
Opening a business difficult. Normal made prestige education for your children hard to come by. Normal wasn't a real situation. We need a normal that brings everybody. What the African tribe calls what? Ubuntu. We need a normal closer to that where everybody could share. You agree?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. The we need we are able now to think of things radical because before, I've proposed radical ideas before, and they say you could never do that. Well, look at this. You ever thought you'd see St. Peter's Square empty? You ever thought that people would be locked up in their homes and wear masks? We can do what we want if we have the will, and we're going to have to, because in our old normal, we had too many vulnerable people, too many poor people, and now in the new normal, there's going to be twice as many as that, three times as many of that. Before, if you were vulnerable, now you would be pushed head underneath the water. I mean, people are. I mean, I know you've been giving out, hampers and so forth. I've been helping in whatever ways I can with our food kitchen here in Chaguanas, and I mean, the distress this is unnecessarily causing people, it really angers me, and we are going to have to deal with this fallout, right? You have children, I have children. I want them to stay here. I'm not one of those people who say, "Boy, I hope my child gets the hell out of this country." That's not what I want.
Go back. Consumption,
Mhm.
labor, demand, credit. Consumption, labor,
Yeah,
demand, credit. That's the four legs of an economy. Consumption, labor,
you're
demand,
missing
credit.
one, eh?
Tell me,
Production, production.
boss, production is the child of all four. But
No,
consumption,
no, I'll tell you, because the problem with our economy is because
labor is production. Labor is
we've
production.
imported everything. You understand? We've imported our consumption, and we need to produce as well. We need to
But
produce.
I want to say to you this: consumption, labor, demand, credit. So
Yeah,
where you say production, I have labor, and I think labor would account for that. But I'm saying to you, those four things could drive a country to have KFC as its main chicken and chips, or you could have Chefettes, or you could have a
yeah.
Royal Castle, or you could have a Japs. It doesn't have to be imported. We do not have to see ourselves now through foreigners' eyes.
That
Trinidad and Tobago.
that's why I say production, eh? Because production means jobs, not KFC. It's not franchising. It is
But
jobs.
but consumption and labor is us. That's we the
Yeah,
people.
that's right.
Demand is us. We the
Yeah,
people.
that's right.
Credit. Of the four things, only credit we don't have responsibility for. But credit is a function of money. And money overlaid over all the other ways we have of transacting, including barter and person to person credit and
Yeah.
susu and every other way that we could as a people. And I'm saying to you, this is why I'm saying to you, Kirk, we can't lose you on thinking people like you to ideologies that are not focused on the man on the bottom rung. You talk
Of
about
course.
hamper, and that is that is the most important thing we can do when people are hungry. But we need to
That is
also
right.
create opportunities for
Yeah.
people to
Because
feed.
the frustrating part of it is that we are creating more poor people, and then we're creating a situation where we have to give out hampers. But we cannot have a society of giving of hampers and food kitchens. That's not the type of society and economy we should be having. Right? We should have something where people have the dignity of earning their own income, of being in charge of their own life, of not having, the
That is,
indignity of receiving handouts.
that is why the middle word, and I want to show you now, when you talk about ideology and philosophy and what represents a party. We took our time in building the Progressive Empowerment Party. We just talk about there's empowerment. And we
Yeah,
empower everybody. And we need to use progressive, first world, what you call radical policies, ideas, programs, and create an opportunity for everybody to maximize their full potential. For all the Brian Laras and Mozarts and Ronaldinhos to find themselves. We need all the doctors and the lawyers and the engineers. We need all our cooks, our chefs, our ballerinas, our singers, our dancers. We need everybody. We need to give everybody the same hope and opportunity. Not everybody is driven to be a trillionaire before they die. Some people are
Yeah.
driven to write five. Some people are driven to write a masterpiece, a song, an opera. What it is that drives you, go for that. But we need to make sure that there are no obstacles in preventing you from achieving what you wanted to do. Kirk, it is always enjoyable having a conversation with you. I always learn. You stretch my mind, and I appreciate that. I want to thank you for joining me. I want to give you an opportunity to have your closing comments and take as much time as you need.
Listen, I think the most important thing is to think about what we are going to do after these restrictions are lifted. I think they should be lifted now. We are number 2. We are ranked since the 20th of April. We've been ranked as the number 2 country that should be lifting, that can lift its lockdown measures. Every day we keep it on is like another month. If we had a 2-week period with a limited state of emergency, it would have been harsh, but we would have had the quarantine period, and then after we could start to lift it after. And I think, maybe 6 months to a year, whatever hit that this society would have had, we could have recovered from. Now, I think it's probably all gone because the international situation is totally messed up. So we have to really think about radical ways, just out of the box ways now for us to rebuild our society. It's like we're going to start over from scratch. If you look at the United States, I don't know what our figures are, but if 30,000 people have applied for salary relief grants, our labor force is 690,000 people roughly. So that's roughly 4.5% of the labor force applying for salary relief. And you know how hard it was to apply for that? So I don't know if you have to double it or you have to put another 50% or something as to people who lost it. But that's people who are on NIS. So what about the people in the informal economy? Our unemployment figures, I don't know what it's going to be like. We can only guess now. But in the United States, they have never, ever seen the amount of, not even in the Great Depression, have they seen these types of figures. So it's like we're going to start over from scratch. So we have to start to think what we are going to do to rebuild the society. And all of us who are politically active need to be pushing our respective organizations, playing our parts to do that. And we cannot let political barriers separate us at this time. We have to move forward. So that's my message.
Thanks a lot for that, my friend. And this argument that we're having is going to continue for a long time until I convince you to don the orange and the white that is the progressive empowerment. Thanks a lot for joining us, Kirk. Thanks a lot.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah. And Trinidad and Tobago, that's where we are tonight. That's where we leave you. Tonight's show went on for an extra 45 minutes because a lot of information was being shared, and we still barely scratched the surface of what we want to bring to the public. We need an informed voter base. All the work that we've been doing, people like Kirk Meighoo and others. The Progressive Empowerment Party said from day one, our mission is to inform, educate, and empower. We've never stopped that play. Pep Talks in the morning. It happens every morning, Monday to Friday, 8 to 10, hosted by Chairman of the party, Felicia Holder. All of these efforts by the Progressive Empowerment Party, our website, pepgt.com, we have our own app. Pep app is available on all the app stores, free to download. You can reach out to us. Our phone numbers, we have a WhatsApp broadcast. We have 2 WhatsApp broadcast lists. The purpose of all of this and this show tonight, and if you saw it, if you saw a piece of it, watch the whole show. And I want to tell the people who think that this is an easy conversation to have and you ask A and then wait for B. It's a debate, it's an argument, it's a fight. We're trying to carve something in reality, in real time. So those of you who coming to this show looking for an interview, you're on the wrong station, you're in the wrong place. Go and tune in to Hamer in the morning, ask question, wait for answer. This is real information. This is ideas exchange. What you heard tonight gave you information start to finish on policy. They say policy on the hoof. This is policy on the herd. We did tonight what you don't get from the parliament, what you should get from the parliament. The Progressive Empowerment Party hopes, because we're not dictating, we hope to get the mass of Trinidad and Tobago to see our history, to see the reality of why we are what we are, how we came to be here, and come together as one people under one flag. I am the last person to want power or authority or post or position. I will give it up in a heartbeat to anybody else who have love of country and love of people, who will fight and stand against all the gangs and all the cliques and all the power brokers, to be that rising tide that lifts all boats. To the people who want to say, Philip, too arrogant, you are in a war for the soul of this nation. Who you want to send? A powder puff? Name the powder puff. Tell me what you hope that they're going to accomplish. To the deep pocket people who send in messengers from the West, stick a pin in it. The Progressive Empowerment Party is here to stay. You write a check for $10 million to the Progressive Empowerment Party tomorrow. I will step down and form a new party the next day. The mission is to free minds, free people, and raise this nation up to the first world standard it was supposed to be. Singapore that got election, they got independence at the same time as us. They're half the size of us. There are 5 million people. Their economy is 22 times our size, the most competitive economy in the world. They don't have oil, they don't have gas, they don't have Point Lisas, they don't have Trinitario cocoa. They're not the only tropical island outside of the hurricane belt. They don't have all the things going for them that we have. Trinidad and Tobago has been brutalized by a ruling class, a minority of people that have used access to political power and this I guess, the shrewd movement of questionable money. But Philip Edward Alexander and all of the members of the Progressive Empowerment Party and the growing mass of us are here to say, all right, you had your day, you had your play. Now it's time for all of us, we the people of Trinidad and Tobago, to maximize our potential and live as one people under one flag, where we can share the largest of this country, everything that we're going to build on our labor and our consumption and our demand, because that's what all business is built on. And if we were told labor, consumption, and demand, you're done. So it is time everybody start working together in common cause. We have an opportunity to start and reboot this republic and reinvent Trinidad and Tobago post-COVID-19. Let's make that a country that is not cult-driven. Let's make that a country that's not corrupt. Let's make that a country where white-collar criminality does not dictate our day. Let's make that a country where elitism and separationism doesn't divide and rule us. We can be the country we always wanted to be. Paradise on earth convincingly. We just have to want it. Every single night we do the show is to bring people to you, to show you what we're talking here could be your reality. Until tomorrow, stay safe, Trinidad and Tobago.